Hey, welcome to this episode of Light 'em Up. We take a deep dive on the criminal justice system, crime scene investigation, and leadership. We enlighten, educate, and empower others with the truth. Like it or not, the truth disturbs, the truth divides, but ultimately, the truth delivers. Hey, I'm your host, Phil Rizzo. I'm the principal owner of Rizzo's Protective Group. We are a high-risk security consulting firm headquartered out of Akron, Ohio, and with offices in the Bronx, New York, and in Cerro Alto, the Dominican Republic. As we put the ball on the tee to line things up for kickoff, we speak life, health, and prosperity over each and every one of you, and we want to thank you for tuning in and listening to Light 'em Up. Hey, today we have the high honor and privilege to sit and talk with a true role model, a dear, dear friend of mine, and a highly decorated, dedicated, and exemplary career law enforcement officer. During times when law enforcement is taking a rightful beating for the actions of more than a few, it's great to talk with a true hero who has maintained the highest standard of public service and has labored extremely hard daily, having kept his nose clean for more than 39 years on the job. He's the recipient of the Officer of the Year on the B Shift, the Medal of Heroism, the Medal of Valor, and the Public Safety Hero of the Year. On this episode of Light 'em Up, we are in the interrogation room with retired Cleveland Police Department Sergeant Victor Hayes. All who know him and love him refer to him lovingly and respectfully as Crown Vic. And as I would think, he's nicknamed after the Crown Victoria Police Interceptor that was introduced in 1993, but he's probably had that nickname for longer than that. Victor's life has always been dedicated to service before self. He has risked his life to protect and serve the great citizens of the city of Cleveland, Ohio for an amazing 39-year career of crime fighting. Having just recently retired in December of 2020, hey, to know Sergeant Hayes is to love him. If I ever knew a guy who was as tough and as cool as Shaft, it's Victor Hayes. But, and here's the kicker, if you truly know Vic, you'd know he's a big teddy bear with a giant heart of pure gold. Absolutely. He's a brother of mine in heart, and we are also brothers in ASIS, the American Society of Industrial Security, the largest professional security organization in the world. He started with the CPD under Mayor George Voinovich in 1980 and served under Mayors White, Campbell, and Jackson. When he retired, there were only about 15 people in the nation that had equivalent length of service on the job, which is tremendously impressive, but not surprising when the subject of focus is Victor Hayes. Vic, we are honored to be spending time with you. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Light 'em Up.
Brother Phil, it is my pronounced pleasure to invite me to your show, and I'm extremely happy and looking forward to this, a highlight of my life and my career.
Oh, thanks, Vic.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
It's great to have you. The honor is all ours. Hey, Vic, we want to tap into your depth of experience and expertise. Now, for quite some time, but especially now, there's been a national landscape of mistrust between the police and the public. And the second principle that are generally assigned to Sir Robert Peel of the 9 principles of the Peelian Code states that, and this is the second principle, it states, the ability of the police to perform their duties is dependent upon public approval of police actions. In December of 2014, President Obama signed an executive order establishing the Commission on the 21st Century Policing. Vic, what has happened to policing? How can policing practices promote healthy crime reduction while building the public trust?
Oh, it can be done. You mentioned the 12 Pillars by Mr. Peel. Surprisingly, that book is part of the study materials that we use in our promotional process. When an officer or detective goes to be for promotion to the sergeant, to lieutenant or captain, that's one of the study books. So it's there. It's nothing new. And right now, yes, law enforcement is under siege 10 ways to Sunday, 360 degrees around. Is there an answer to that? Yes, there's an answer to every problem.
Absolutely.
And sometimes the answers are ugly, they taste bad, they smell bad, but it solves the problem. And that's the issue where we're having right now. We have the answer how to stop this, okay, but we have to go forth and actually put it into place. When President Obama came into office, he had then Attorney General Eric Holder as the Attorney General. So police reform is nothing new. It has been there since day one. So it's not the narrative now is loud and guttural, and it captures the headline on the internet, on TV, and it sounds good. So it's nothing new. We don't have to reinvent the wheel here. The wheel's already been invented.
Right.
Things change. To be able to be a successful practitioner of public safety, where fire department, police department, or EMS, things change over the years. When I came on in 1981, my training officers were guys from the Vietnam War era, Korea, and things changed from 1981 over the years. That way of policing cannot be done anymore. And so you need to change as times change. And when you resist that, yes, you're going to have the issues. During the 60s and the 70s, there was the same issues we're having right now. It wasn't approached properly. There was no Department of Justice who came in to the department and said, look, what you're doing is all wrong. You need to change this, and this is what's going to happen.
Right.
And so that problem escalated and kept snowballing. And so now we have the Department of Justice, an institution, law enforcement institution that's been around for a very long time of the federal government, okay, who steps in to remedy the problems, systemic issues that the department are having.
I see. To piggyback on that, and you've touched upon some of the causative factors and some of the reasons in your answer there. But in your professional opinion, for what reasons have the wheels seemed to have come off of the policing bus? Number one, do you agree that they have, in some regards, the wheels have come off the bus? And if so, why so?
The wheels have completely separated from the tire and the rim, and the bus is getting out of control down a 90 slope. Okay, and the reason that has happened, it's not going to happen to me. We're in control. We're running the show in this town or this region. We're doing this, and we're not having anybody come and tell us what to do. Okay, well, it's not being done right. We just got to put the wheels back on, and the reason why the wheels are being put back on is to the disgust of a lot of old-time administrators who don't want change. Well, that's out the window. Okay, you don't have to change, because the way of doing business is not going to happen, even more so now. What we've seen recently, and what we're seeing every day, we're seeing departments that are having issues, okay, of the treatment of certain citizens. That's a two-sided coin, which we'll get into later. The two-sided coin. Okay, the Department of Justice comes in and take a look at what happened here in Cleveland. We had issues, okay. The mayor, Jackson, invited the Department of Justice to come in, take a look at the way the business was being taken care of. And they found a systemic practice of things being doing wrong, left, and right. Okay, systemic practice of denying individuals of human rights, denying them the privilege of and the immunities that's secured by the Constitution and the federal government. Okay, that was being done wrong. So the Department of Justice comes in and says, look, this is what we're going to do to change this. Now, in some cities, the Department of Justice comes in after the fact of stuff and goes sideways. Mm-hmm. Someone is killed, okay? Then they come in and make these changes. Some cities embrace the recommendations of the Department of Justice. One thing is the way you're training, the way you take care of business, your citizen interaction, these go along these lines. Then they tell the city first, you must pay these people some more money. Okay? You're not paying them a livable wage. So how can you expect these individuals to go out on the front line and do this job when they're getting paid very much money?
Right.
Some cities embrace that. And after the Department of Justice is satisfied that that city has complied, they pack up and leave. But what happens is the Department of Justice comes into some cities and they resist the recommendations of the Department of Justice. We're not going to do it this way. This is the way we do it. So the Department of Justice, the administrators and inspector generals, fine. They go out and buy them a house, an area, because they're going to be here for a long time, okay? Yeah. Until that city or community complies with the issues.
I see. That makes
sense. I think I answered that, right?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Absolutely.
Now, there's a two-sided coin to this. Now, what I mentioned about the equitable relief to the systemic problems of deprivation of human rights and privileges and immunities that are secured by the Constitution and the federal government, okay? That has been established. And in many cities, yes, that is not a mere allegation. They have taken reports, situations over the years and said, this is the problem you're having. This is what you're doing. Now, on the other side of this coin, though, is the fact that nowhere is there a right for a criminal to be deprived of any rights or privileges or immunities secured by the Constitution.
Right. Yeah.
At this point in time, that person is performing a criminal act, which is homicide, rape, rob, pillaging, theft. Okay, now that person's right and comes in conjunction with a law enforcement officer. The law enforcement officer has a job to prevent that, to apprehend this individual. Now, we have citizens, hardworking, and these times we're going through right now, some of them not hardworking. The pandemic, they have lost their jobs, and they're mainly trying to survive.
Right.
These people need to be protected from the criminal element. But, with that said, in protecting these people from the criminal element, the law enforcement must be able to know how to perform it right. Now, I have been to police journal. Very unpleasant, okay? So we're not there to find ourselves injured or killed, which is happening as we speak right now.
Absolutely.
So the goal here is how do we do this right? It's like we mentioned the Department of Justice. You say, how do we fix this? Now, there are some cities, like I'm not quite sure if the city of Minneapolis has been under the Department of Justice supervision. They will be, Phil. Yes, they will. Because if the Department of Justice had been in any of these cities, the situation with Floyd would not have happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
The situation in New York where he had the citizen, Mr. Garner, the very large man who was tackled to the ground, who was struggling with his hands stretched out, his fingers stretched out, saying, I cannot breathe. And he had all these people jumping on top of him, strangling him, with, if I may add, a supervisor standing there watching this.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So if we had the Department of Justice come in before this happened, none of that would have happened.
Yeah.
Have I dealt with individuals like Mr. George Floyd in Minneapolis? Yes, I have. Have I dealt with individuals such as Mr. Gardner in New York and other cases around the country? Yes, I have. Were they killed? No.
Absolutely.
Were they injured? Had to be rushed to a hospital emergency room, in a trauma room, emergency room? No, they didn't. No, they didn't. There was a fight, all right, but it was not trying to kill this person. He was trying to kill me in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you this to further the ball down the field. Now, Vic, I know, and everyone who has been blessed to know you is cognizant of the fact that you were an exemplar public servant. Exemplar.
I appreciate that.
And
I did the best I could.
Absolutely. And how did you go about accomplishing all of the good that you did on the job? I mean, for example, what strategies and personal practices did you employ in order to achieve such a long and sustained successful career of nearly 4 decades?
Well, Phil, I never went out to be a police officer. My goal was to join the fire department. And I went to school at community college. I got the associate degree in fire technology, and I was lucky enough to transfer to the University of Maryland, College Park, to get the bachelor's degree in fire technology and fire science from the College of Fire Engineering. And I was a volunteer firefighter in College Park for 2 years.
I see.
That's back when we were riding on the back step of the fire truck. And so when I came back to Cleveland, I applied to the fire department, and my name was so far down the list. I Cleveland Police. Someone mentioned Cleveland Police was hiring, so I took the test for Cleveland Police. The same test, but the word hire. Okay, now I'm a Cleveland police officer. Whoa. Said, well, my family, we're Southerners from Arkansas, and we have the sort of tenacity of like, okay, you go down this road and you make it. You hit the accelerator and go forward. Reverse is disconnected, so the reverse gear is disconnected. So you don't even use the reverse. Okay, you use accelerator. So what happened was I found myself, at that time the academy was only 7 weeks. We went 6 days a week because they needed people in the street. And 7 weeks after I got accepted into the academy, I graduated. I'm in a patrol car driving down Huff Avenue in the 5th District of Cleveland Police with a little 38 6-shot.
Okay.
And my first day when I walked into the room, I said, I'm going to need to learn this job in a big hurry, very fast, because I had seen people watch TV during the riots, Cleveland riots of 66, Huff riots, the Glenville shootout riots in 1968. I'd seen it on TV. I'd seen the narrative against police officers, especially when it came in terms of dealing with members of the African-American community. So, Phil, when I got in there, I met and worked with some of those people who were in the riots in 66 and 68 because they were still on the job. And what I did was, I was a college kid that came off the college campus. I knew how to research. I went down to the library and did some research on those riots. And I went to the station, and during the work, I would approach some of these officers. These were grizzled white officers who had an evil scar on their face, They look at you like ooh, they had sinews, like ice water went through their veins. I approached them, and as a young black officer, 26, I approached one of these grizzled officers, and I said very politely, were you working when the 1956, when the Glenville riots happened? Were you working in 68 the Huff riots in Glenville and the Glenville riots in 68? And the funny thing happened, Phil. These old-timer white officers would stop what they were were doing, they would turn, look at me. Their faces would go blank, and they would look me directly in the eye, and they would give it to me blow by blow what they did.
Wow.
They were so afraid. They didn't think they were going home that night. Their friends were being killed in front of them. They were being shot themselves trying to rescue their friend. And this was long before EMS and life flight helicopter and local entry. They did what they had to do. A lot of these guys are from Korea and Vietnam, and they would tell me this, and we talk, and after they said, and they would turn, they very slowly walk away, because I asked them, they weren't expecting me for them to go into a very deep, dark place in their lives.
Yeah.
But they wore the badge, they wore the uniform with pride, and they're my heroes. So the way they stood up, I said, okay, I need to continue this.
Yeah.
I need to continue what they did and stand tall for right and wrong, no matter who you're working with. I've worked with people who were scoundrels, yeah. Some of them, majority of them had no business being on the police officers, period. This back in these days, they, some of them come to work either intoxicated or jacked up on dope or whatever in that particular era. But you had to maintain, no, I don't want to do what you're doing.
No, absolutely.
I'm not impressed, so I took my own way and tried to do what I could, and like I said, I didn't grow up wanting to be a police officer. I'd watch a few TV shows. I'd watch Adam 12 on TV and Police Story during the 70s, which didn't do too much justice because I didn't know what was going on. I can watch those shows now, and it's like, yeah, that hits the nail around the head because I've been a part of this for almost 40 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what I asked your question.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense, and it is. It's a tough job, and you did it and did it well. So share with our listeners, share with us what you enjoyed most about your public service to the citizens of Cleveland over the nearly 4 decades of exemplary service that you provided them. What did you enjoy most?
One of the most rewarding things in that job to me personally is, you're investigating crimes, you're doing research, some cases you have to take people to jail. One of the most rewarding things is looking at whatever's in front of you and making the decision, no, that person is not going to jail. This person did not commit this crime. This person did nothing wrong. So you get as much deliberation, if there's a deliberation period, by keeping someone out of jail as taking someone who deserves to be in jail.
I
You understand that?
Yes, I do.
I give you an example. Many years ago, I was working a two-man car, and we got a call for a robbery at a convenience store, shooting. And we get there, there's an elderly security guard there, and the suspect is inside the EMS truck in the parking lot. And I guess this individual, the suspect, he came to the store, he was a cocaine, heroin dealer, he harassed people on the street, he harassed people inside the store, including employees, and they became very afraid of him because he carried a gun. So they hired an elderly security guard. The guy came into the store one night and said, you have to leave. And of course, he, bullied this elderly security guard and walked past him. The security guard approached him and said, you have to leave. His back was turned. As he turned around, he was motioning as he was pulling the gun. The security guard pulled his gun and shot him 5 times. The suspect turned around, looked at the security guard, walked out of the store, and collapsed in the parking lot. Come to find out, he was unarmed. Okay, so months go by, and now I'm testifying in this trial for the individual was not killed. He survived. The attempted aggravated murder of this dope dealer, cocaine dealer, who terrorized the neighborhood, who terrorized patrons of the store. I'm testifying because he's a victim, and the other security guard is the suspect. So at one point during the testimony, the security guard's attorney looked at me and said, Officer Hayes, at that time, so I think I had about 10, 11 years on the job. Officer Hayes, faced with the information that's been provided to you today here in this court, the history of the suspect. This is not only allegations, but proven his violence. Officer Hayes, would you have done the same thing my client would have done? So I turned around, looked at the jury, and I said, I would have done the same exact thing. Not guilty, Phil.
I see.
This man didn't go to the prison. Now, the prosecutor says, so I can't help that, okay? This man did nothing wrong. He was just doing what anybody at that time would have done, stretching his capacity as a security guard, okay? So that was good. I enjoyed that because that man did not need to go to prison for that. Now, there have been other cases where, yes, I've testified and the right person received the appropriate consequences for the crime they committed. Yes, the harming of people, men, women, children, animals, okay? Yes, they went to prison. They serving the consequences. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But also, it's a situation where the little thing, where you're helping someone, maybe it's a handicapped citizen. Can I tell you one more story here?
Absolutely. We're here to listen.
Another instance is where I was working another one-man car. I went to report a gentleman was reporting his girlfriend missing. And I get there and with the information, this gentleman was a very tough, rugged-looking black black man, all right, tough, And his girlfriend, who's on drugs, first the month comes, she gets the money and she take off and she take up the car and go off for a week or two and show up. Sometimes she has the car, sometimes she doesn't. And he's making a missing person report on her. And, I'm saying it was a February day. I'm cold. I'm standing on the front porch. I said, okay, you need to get rid of her, right? Because she's really not doing anything for you. He said, well, officer, I love her. I can understand that. Do you have a license plate for your car? No, I don't remember it. You got a description of her? Yes, I do. And he gave me information he could. I said, no, okay, I will make a missing person report on her for you, sir. When she comes back, be sure and give me a call so we can come back and take her out of the missing person status. Okay, in the meantime, if she's on drugs, maybe you need to get some help for her.
Right.
And as I turn to leave, Phil, this hard, tough, rugged-looking black man looks at me and he starts to cry. Oh, man, what have I got here now?
Yeah.
He looks at me and says, officer, I can't read. I've been in prison a good majority of my life. I think he's been in his 30s. I've been in prison for the past 15 years. I cannot read. Well, Phil, that's when everything changed. I'm not in a hurry anymore. I'm not cold anymore.
Right.
Let's go back inside. Went back inside, got the phone book out. I went to the county agency that he needs to, or someone needs to call to get help for his girlfriend.
Yeah.
His sister helps him in his business, so I said, here, I circled the county agency and drug hotline information for him. And when you see your sister, tell her sister when she calls, tell her to say certain things. I told him to tell her what to say verbatim, nothing else, because at that point, when you're dealing with county hotline, these people have to make a judgment whether or not the call or receive when there's bogus or someone messing around or it's serious business. So I helped him tell her so these people understand they're dealing with serious business. And he thanked me.
Yeah.
So I had to go back to the car and drive down the road and park because that affected me.
Absolutely.
Here I am, police officer, and, I'm trying to get the information report, okay, 10, 15 minutes. This man was in trouble. And do you know what it took for him to tell me that he was illiterate? Because, officer, I can't read.
Yeah.
Help.
Yeah, I bet that was really hard for him to do that.
Bam.
At
which point I can stop and use whatever tools I have in my toolbox to help this man in his issue,
Absolutely.
which I did.
Absolutely. And that's where, if ever anyone ever earned their stripes, and like we told our listeners earlier in the introduction of today's show, you really have a heart of gold, a pure heart of gold. And
I appreciate that, Phil.
We call them like we see them. And
thank you, brother.
Thank
you, brother. I appreciate that.
It's all good, Vic. As we try to push in a little bit, let's advance the ball down a little bit more, okay? Because we're really covering some good ground here, and it's not about good cop or bad cop. We're not talking about that. Let's talk about the foundational institution of policing itself. Now, where I don't personally believe defunding the police to be any kind of a viable option or a solution to anything, we can't get away from the fact that the origins of police and policing in this country were to serve as slave patrols. Now, and these slave patrols, traditionally known as patrollers or paddy rollers by enslaved persons of African descent, they were organized groups of armed men who monitored and enforced discipline upon slaves in the antebellum U.S. southern states. Now, my question for you would be, has 21st century policing shed the foundational concepts of how it originally perceived and reacted to individuals of color?
That has not been addressed in law enforcement. It should be, okay? I saw the issue we're talking about there. I saw that on television. My cousin pointed out to me one of the History Channel shows. I did not know that. I should have. How did the policing start? And that way, once you know their origins, that way you can actually work and do the job knowing where you came from. Now, when I told you about the old-timer police officers from the riots, how much I respected them, that set me on a path in which I decided I needed to go. But also knowing that when it first started, that these individuals were out enforcing laws on slaves, catching runaway slaves, killing them, bringing them back in chains. I did not know that then. I know it now, and which is some of the issues. Mm-hmm. Now, we have a lot of people in the American community who are legitimately have a good legitimate gripe and complaint against modern law enforcement as it relates to African American citizens. In 1965, I was 10 years old, and I was living in a small town of Fordyce, Arkansas, in Dallas County. And our relationship with the police was no relationship. The only time that you wanted to see the police car was the lights flashing and the siren blowing was during the 4th of July parade when they're coming down Main Street. That's the only time you wanted to see that car with lights flashing and sirens blowing. And it put the fear into a good majority of black people and a lot of white people also, because of black people in 65, a lot of these people were descendants from slaves.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they knew about lynching. They knew members of the law enforcement were members of what we now term as a terrorist groups, Ku Klux Klan and other supremacist organizations. These officers were members of these organizations, and we knew we had nothing coming from law enforcement, so we policed ourselves. So having that understood, now I was there. A lot of the younger persons, they read this in the history books. Well, I was there before it was written in the history book. But you must have that also, especially when I became a police officer, when you're in a city, when you're dealing with older people who came from the South, and you're dealing with them, okay? People, they can smell a police officer, he or she has an issue. When you pull up in front of that house, they're watching you. They're watching you get out of the car. They're watching you walk up the sidewalk. They're looking at the expression on your face. These people can smell it if you have an issue. And, oh my God, this guy looks like, or this guy looks like they're gonna, and they know that. And too many times it's confirmed when it's dealing with that. And that is not explored. Now, what we're seeing now is in 2014, a lot of people came on the job with me. By 2014, they had all retired. And so a lot of these departments across the country, a lot of these departments are hiring younger people.
Right.
Okay, without older, experienced officers training them, okay? And what is happening in a lot of these cities is where they cannot find applicants that can qualify to become police officers, which means they have to go out of state or other parts of the state. And what we saw here in Cleveland was the young white officers, they were recruiting young white officers from southern Ohio, okay, Akron, let's go even further, south of Columbus, Dayton, mid-Ohio rural areas. So we had a lot of young white officers come on who had never been around black people, who didn't saw them only on TV, they never had any interactions. And now you got them in the zone car, cranking down in the city neighborhood, going to a shots fired with lights and sirens flashing. So they get out into the neighborhood. Now you're around people who they've never been around before.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem. Yeah, absolutely.
Which has been a problem, and which is not addressed to these young people. When you get on with African American officers, trying to find African American officers, male or female, who can qualify. Mm-hmm. And I mean, by qualify, have the background, the beyond reproach background, where there's been no serious issues in their life, there's been no arrest or serious crimes, okay, from the black community, which is going to be an issue because we're going to need to have more African American and other officers from different backgrounds and races and heredity, okay?
Yeah.
Trying to find, because Cleveland is a multi-faceted city. It's diverse with different people and different levels. So you need to get other people in it, but finding the right people who are qualified to do this is going to be a hard problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I mean, I do believe that law enforcement is a noble calling and a noble profession, but as we all know and have had a front row seat to witness, unfortunately, the few can define the many. One bad apple can spoil the bunch. So how do we go about weeding the bad seeds out of the profession?
One, the hiring process, because right now the problem is going to be we have so many people leaving law enforcement. Now, Cleveland, we don't have near the problem as in like Seattle, Washington, or Portland, Oregon. We simply don't have that. They have pronounced issues there, okay? And being able to get the right people to come in, and unfortunately, the people, they're not aware of the world around them. I can remember back in the 90s when the crew of Los Angeles police officers had issues with Rodney King. Mm-hmm. They dealt with Mr. King out in the street there, and there was a serious use of force. But only imagine the next day when they woke up and their actions were all over international world TV.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, oh my God. Well, let me tell you something. Everybody saw that. I saw that. Other police officers saw that, and they said, oh man, I saw the aftermath and the consequences. I don't think I like that at all. I don't think I'm going down that road. personally. The same thing with Mr. Gardner in New York City, Mr. Floyd in Minneapolis, and other issues, okay? As we speak, there are going to be situations where you have officers, bad officers, young officers, inexperienced officers doing things in the guise of doing their job, okay, and end up in the same problem. And that's also the problem of administrators, because if you have a city that is not under Department of Justice jurisdiction, but you see the consequences having those cities, the administrator needs to sit everybody down. Hey, look, did you see what happened in Cleveland? Did you see what happened in Minneapolis? We're not going to have that here. If you do, you're going to end up going to jail or get fired. Watch that. Look at the tapes. Now, still, if you have a young person fooling themselves, and they got that badge and got on, and they're strutting around in that high-powered, let's say the Crown Victoria, if they left out there, and the Ford Tauruses, and they're flying down the street, that light's flashing and siren blowing, they're on top of the world, they're tough. They get out of the car, well, I'm in charge here, and that's going to happen to me. Well, then, okay, they're going to have a very short career like we're having right now. Now, this needs to be taken in considering at the hiring process, because majority of us, when you're being interviewed for these jobs, you're sitting before an interviewer. And the question is, why do you want to be a police officer? And the generic answer is, I like helping people. I want to do the right thing, make a difference in the world. Like, do you? Really? Okay, helping somebody means at 3 o'clock in the morning when it's almost time to go home and someone's screaming, someplace out there, you need to get to that point where this person's screaming and see what's going on. Helping someone is going into someone's house and seeing a deplorable condition, and try to go one step further to help them get out of that situation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
The situation, officer, can you help me? Morning, noon, and night, whether it's 5 degrees below zero or 90 degrees out. Officer, can you please help me? If one cannot do that, let's save everybody trouble. Go back to the station, take the gun and badge off, lay it on the table, and go have a nice day, because you have no business being there.
Absolutely.
But you told that interviewer you like helping people, you want to make a difference, and you're not. So it's also in the fine print. So when you fill out the application form, it says in the fine print, yes, you'll be enforcing the laws, state, city, federal laws. Your life will be in danger 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And one needs to read that fine print and know what they get themselves into, because a lot of them don't. It's overwhelming. But what happens is, you try to, once you see a person is struggling, you try to nurture them, you try to bring them up, stand them up, and show them how to survive the career, which is the job of not only police administrators, but training officers. But we get back to the same point we had before, because we don't have that many good, experienced officers to be able to train.
No, absolutely.
Now, the city will have issues because if you have a mass exodus of people leaving, you got to hire people, okay? And so you just hire anybody, and you're going to pay the price, plain and simple.
Yeah, that's true. Let me ask you this, Vic. What do we want our police to do? I mean, are we expecting too much from them to be social workers, emergency medical practitioners, and keep the peace simultaneously?
Yes, to all of that. I had an old-time police officer many years ago. He was a police officer in one of the suburbs, and he told one of the guys I was working with that he worked by himself in one of the suburbs, where you have to be Clarence Darrow, or F. Lee Bailey, or any of the prominent attorneys. You had to be Superman. You had to be everything, okay? And now, yes, and the way things are going on, you have to be Superman or Superwoman. You have to be trained and have a knowledge of different aspects of the job. You may have to get down and put the rubber gloves on and stop bleeding because the EMS unit is tied up on another run. They have no EMS units or fire units to assist you. You may have to get out and put your hands in that blood with rubber gloves on and take that person to the hospital. Okay? You may have to be that counselor to that small child who is crying, whose family is in the middle of a domestic violence issue. You have that small child or that family pet, okay? This is collateral damage. You may have to calm them down, talk to them, okay? If you can't do any of that, one should not be a police officer, especially when you're dealing with people who are of different ethnic backgrounds. Okay, so if I am a black officer and I'm going into a home of some citizens who are ethnic Italian or Irish or Polish, okay, you must be professional. Okay, I had a situation once where I was working with I was a supervisor and I assisted a young officer. There was a family death in an Italian neighborhood, and the family was Italian, and they were very upset. And I stood there, and tried to comfort them and console them. I'm in uniform, so is my young officer, and we're to be professional. If you can't do that, again, and one needs to lay the gun and dash on and go home. It's not rocket science, Phil.
No. Yeah, I got you.
It takes an individual, an adult. Okay, this is not a game, law enforcement. It's definitely not a toy. We see what's happening, and as we speak, what's happening right now, it's definitely not a toy.
Yeah.
You have, like, a classic example, a couple of days ago in the city of Columbus, Ohio, there was a dispute, a fight in the street. A young lone Columbus police officer arrived on the scene first, one-man car. You get out of the car, and there's people fighting, and all sorts of confusion is going on. And he looked up, and there's a young woman. He didn't know she was a teenager. He didn't know what the circumstance was. The only thing he knew was she had a knife, and she was getting ready to, in the process of swinging that knife and stabbing or killing the person that was in front of her.
Mm-hmm.
He had a split second to make a decision. He had to use deadly force. He's by himself, backups and rounds there. Come down and shoot someone, lights flashing, lights, fire screaming. They're not there yet. He is there, okay? He had to make a split decision to use deadly force, okay? This young woman had a knife. She's getting ready to stab or cut up or carve up the woman in front of her. Not knowing the situation, he was there to protect that woman's life. The news media is lambasting, sports figures have lambasted him. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. If you want to go there, which is juvenile and destructive, apply officer. One sports figure says, I'm tired of these police officers killing black people. And this individual was jumping up and down and screaming and posting stuff, and the police unit says, please don't do this. You don't know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You had a white officer who prevented one black person from killing another black person. And now you're going to lambaste this officer and hang him at the stake. So you must be aware, nowadays, you must be aware that you're not going to be everyone's friend, Phil. At the end of the day, you may have made some friends, you may not have. You may have had more people, including your own supervisor, mad at you for whatever reason.
Right.
But you did what was right, what you thought was right, within the context of rules and regulations. So yes, you may need to have today's police officer. This isn't, I think you're old enough to remember Andy Mayberry, Andy Griffin show.
Mm-hmm.
There was Andy Griffin, and he was a country, and his deputy, Barney Fife, he was rural South Carolina sheriff, where everything was peaceful and serene, and his deputy was so screwed up, he only gave him one bullet that he carried himself. Well, that is not where we are nowadays.
No,
okay?
No, not at all.
You have to be multifaceted, you have to be multi-talented and multi-trained.
Yeah,
I'm also a state certified firefighter.
Okay.
I kept that going from my college days. So there are different things I can do.
Absolutely.
To help me get through the day in a job.
Yeah,
and you got to be able to go home and say, okay, I think I did something right today. In some cases, you don't have to think about it.
Yeah, and after a 39-year career, you've done a lot of good jobs. Absolutely.
Well, nowadays, then things were different. The rules of engagement were different, but they changed. And it says, okay, you come to work, and the rules of engagement are different. Rules, protocols, department knows this, are different from what happened yesterday. So today, you have to apply these new rules and regulations. I told, when I was a sergeant, I gave roll call back when this pandemic first started. I told these young people, they had no idea, that what's going to happen is we're facing situations which is uncharted waters. Rules and regulations that we've known them are going to be folded up and put into a box. New rules and regulations will be enacted overnight to be applied the next day, which we saw happening. Because we're in uncharted waters, we don't know what's going to happen. At the same time, we were having the racial unrest, the rioting around the country. I said, everything was up in air, Phil, and we had to improvise as we went. I just had enough time on the job to be able to direct these young people of what I've seen over the years of what they may face, which is the issue of this job and training someone. It's like, if you are my young rookie, I need to tell you exactly the road that you're going down, what you want to see, how to react. I worked with officers as a rookie. They were some of my training officers. I didn't work for them very long. A lot of these guys were scoundrels. Like, for a better word. Some of these guys came in drunk. Some, the marijuana and everything else. A lot of these individuals had been in trouble with their jobs. They had been in trouble. They had been prosecuted for alleged crimes, and they're still working as police officers. But I tell you, those old timers, what they would do is they would take a look at you and they say, I don't know if I want to work with this guy, this gal, or maybe I can work with them and then help them out, get them on the right path. And the scoundrels, what they would do is, this is what I did to be a scoundrel. I can teach you how to be a scoundrel. I can teach you how to get in trouble on your job. I can teach you how to commit a crime, get prosecuted, all right. And those counselors would teach me on their perspective of law enforcement. And it's always something that you can learn, even from bad people. And if that's not to do what they're doing.
Yeah. You as an FTO would be incredible. To have you as a field training officer, that would be an education. That would be...
Oh, been there. Been there. You have a young person, male or female, they don't know. I learned you don't yell at a new person because they simply don't know. You try to tell them the other side of the story. Yes, you've learned the books from the academy. Now it's time to teach you what actual life is in the street, okay? How to survive a career, which is very important. Teach them how to survive a career. And that goes from how to survive or doing your job on the street, and you know how to make arrests, you know how to make reports, you know how to go to court and testify. But there's other things in life you need to learn how to survive also, and that is life itself. Because in the academy, a police officer is trained to be the toughest person on the block, okay? You're the toughest person on the block. Badge, gun, you got radio, you got this, you got tasers, all right? And on that block, you're the toughest person on that block. And anybody comes in your block going to be tougher, they don't have to deal with you. But when that day is over with, you got to go across the street to family, siblings, parents, brothers and sisters, wife, husband, children, okay? They're not going to understand you coming over there as the toughest guy on the block. They're not going to understand you talking to them in a rough manner as you talk to people in the streets, at work. They're not going to understand that. You're going to hurt them. You're going to frighten them. You're going to chase them away. And now you're not going to have anything, okay? And to be honest with you, truthfully, life can be very tough and rugged sometimes. And just because you have a badge and gun on doesn't mean that you're immune. I had an old-time policeman tell me once, he says, "Kid, I have cried many a day with this gun on." I said, wow. Yes, that is pronounced truth. If any police officer says they haven't sat down one day after a tough day dealing with work or dealing with family issues or whatever, and they're overwhelmed and what's in the bar, or they sit down and have a good cry with that gun, if they haven't done that, they're not truthful. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
The truth.
Because I'm not saying neglecting the family. Yes, you must be proficient in your job and get through the day and do it right, but you also have a family. Now, in some cases, like I said, your family struggle may be your parents, your brothers and sisters that you go home to. Maybe it's your wife, or maybe it's your husband. Maybe you are a single parent, okay? Maybe your family structure is cats, plural, dogs, plural. Maybe your family pet is a python snake or a large African spider. Whatever the form your family is in, when you hit that door, they are happy to see you. Thank God he's back home.
Yeah.
Thank God she's here. We were so worried. Are you all right? We saw something on TV today. Were you there? It was horrible. Were you there? Did you see that? And that's why that tough guy police, you leave that outside someplace because these people are frightened for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I didn't realize that until maybe years down the road because a good friend of mine, police officer, he retired, and this guy, he was a tough, very good police officer. Tough. And his son joined Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania police, and I was privileged for him to ask me, because we were in the same academy class. He said, "Vic, my son's getting ready to join Pittsburgh. Will you please, I will buy you a beer if you sit down and talk with us and explain some things to my son about police work and what you get into." I can talk to him all day and all night. I'm dad. Doesn't matter. I got 25 years experience as a police officer. I'm still dad to him, so he's not going to listen to me. I said, "No problem, Mike." And I talked to him, and I talked to this young man, and he's been with Pittsburgh maybe about 19 years now. And my friend, he knows all the Pittsburgh TV stations. He can pull them up on the internet. Because something happened, he constantly monitors the Pittsburgh news. If something happens, he's right there. He's calling his son up. What's going on? Were you there? Did you see that? And that's what the family. Because my family, my uncle, my aunt, my mother, they were older, and they said, "Oh, we're happy you're a police officer, and let's be careful, But these folks were gripped because family members of police officers, firefighters, EMS, they're sitting at home aware, and there's something that grips them deep inside because they know you're out there someplace doing whatever. They don't know whether you've been shot or injured, been laying in the street, and it doesn't end until after you retire or you leave the job.
Yeah, absolutely. I follow you 100%, Vic, on that. Stemming from the Timothy Russell and Melissa Williams shooting in late November of 2012, where Cleveland officers fired more than 137 shots at at the vehicle of Russell and Williams in a school parking lot after a long high-speed chase that began in downtown Cleveland and ended in East Cleveland after the police mistook a car backfiring for a gunshot. Nevertheless, both Russell and Williams were killed, each having been hit by more than 20 bullets, and the officer said they thought the couple was armed. The shooting resulted in no criminal convictions, even though it led to a federal investigation into the Cleveland Police Department, whereby 63 Cleveland cops were temporarily suspended and 6 were ultimately fired altogether. Now, following an investigation in 2014, the U.S. Department of Justice found that the Cleveland Division of Police engaged in practices that violated the U.S. Constitution and federal law. The DOJ determined that there was a pattern of excessive force and the operational and structural issues within the CDP contributed to this practice. Now, in the U.S. v. Cleveland, the Cleveland Police Department and the Department of Justice entered into a consent decree, which requires the Cleveland Division of Police to make a number of fundamental changes to its policies, practices, and procedures to address these issues. And a federal judge oversees and enforces the consent decree to ensure that the city of Cleveland and the CDP complies with the changes outlined in the document. My question, Vic, is how does a police department lose its way to the point to where the federal government has to intercede?
Oh, that's an easy question. Luckily, first of all, I was off that night. I wasn't working. I saw it on TV. What happened there was every rule in the book was tossed out the window. Procedures, rules in connection with high-speed chase, who's to be involved went out the window. The officers were out of control. Supervisors lost control. And what you had was a pitched gun battle in this parking lot with the officers having with each other. They're firing at this car with Mr. Russell or the two victims. And the bullets are going through the car and they're going at the other officers because they were firing almost in a semicircle. And thank God none of the officers were injured. There was a prosecution of one officer. This officer was prosecuted because allegedly, he jumped on the roof of the car. He was firing through the windshield, but he was found not guilty. 53 some officers were suspended in different forms. Some were fired. Some got reinstated. And that issue is still in play because we still have some supervisors who have not been restored back to full duty. This is going back to 2012, and some of these supervisors still have not been given the privileges of being able to be armed. Okay, they're still working, but this is still going on now after months and months of appeal. How did the department look its way? Well, again, you had supervisors who could have said, no, stop, this is not happening. Rules of the relationship of high-speed pursuit says, no, you will not engage in this pursuit this way. One officer made a trap stop at another location and took off on him. And he said, okay, I'm not pursuing. He cut it loose. These officers, they went down and somehow or another, the car backfired or something or other, and now it's on east side, west side, down the interstate. And at one point in time, some officers get on the radio and say they're reloading. They're shooting out the window, they're reloading, and it goes on until there's massive shootouts. None of that was ever substantiated that they had guns. It was never substantiated that the actual officers were being fired at in this pursuit as they were going down the street at high speed. That was never confirmed. It was never confirmed they actually had a gun in the car. So you have all these officers who are coming forward making these statements which were not accurate. Now you have the death of two individuals, and by no means some individuals who, what they were doing and what activities they were involved in is another issue. But right now we're talking about the actions of the police officers. It was the rules and regulations were not applied. The rules and regulations applied to Cleveland police and taking care of business were disavowed, and everybody started doing what they wanted to do. They were out of control. Supervisors lost control.
I see.
And that's what ended up with the Department of Justice coming in.
Yeah. My follow-up question to that would be, what do you feel is the correct step forward towards effective, holistic, comprehensive reforms? Are we to collectively increase the minimum hours of required annual training? For example, should we increase training to focus on community relations or maybe hire more individuals of color to ensure that the force is more diverse? I mean, what would reform look like if it were realistic and of any value?
All of the above. Every recommendation of the Department of Justice needs to be heeded, needs to be applied. And some not the way we do things. Well, that's out the window, the way things used to be. Okay, there was a movie out once called The Way We Were. Well, the way we were is not there anymore. That's in the history books. We need to approach this 21st century, which is different. The people, these citizens, are not stupid. They know what's going on. Now, the good citizens know what's going on. They want the police to be responsive and protect them. First, you have the criminals who want the police to be defunded so they can continue to do the crimes, defund the police, and all those issues. But in order to do this right, yes, we need to train everything. We need more hours of training. And the setback is, though, how to be a very good police officer. Because right now, before I left, we had a rule that whenever you pull your gun out, there was a report you had to file, especially if you pointed at someone. So what I did is, okay, reports are a pain in the neck. You got to do this, you got to do that per regulation. So the thing that's frightening here is we have officers who don't pull their weapon out in a dangerous situation, and they end up getting hurt or killed because they're afraid of being afoul of the rules and regulations. If you're right, you know you're right. The whole idea is to be able to go home in the day. Whatever new rules and new procedures, you work that in. The way we do business should be changed. Let's get training in that. If we need more practice, let's get the hours in.
Right.
If we need to be trained more in dealing with the psychological edge of it, the sociology edge of it, yes, let's get trained. That's how to talk to these people. A lot of these people are not going to be talked to us because when you come to the house, some cases are already in a combative mood. You try to de-escalate. Please, let's take it easy here, all right? Well, no, okay, that's not necessary to say that. Okay, we're here to help. Please, all right? It's not necessary to call me names or making racial or directing racial slurs towards me, ma'am.
Yeah.
I did not do that to you. So please, let's have some respect here. I respect you. This is your house. Respect me. I'm not going to respect you, ma'am. Please, let's not go there.
Absolutely.
And after a while, you may get through to some of these folks. You may not. But nowadays, with the body cameras, which is the best thing since sliced bread, your actions are recorded. So whatever you do is on that body camera. So if you go in and you're trying to be professional and de-escalate a very hostile situation, they're going to come back later and say, well, that officer's racist. Well, how do you know they're racist? Do you actually know them? And if I may say so let's get to the point here. It's not only white officers. There are also black officers who are also pronouncedly racist and can be. So that applies to them also. We have black officers who can be also very racist towards white citizens and to black citizens. Okay, I've worked with one officer I worked with, and he was a black man. And he was a serious racist. He had serious issues with black people and the way he treated black people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's across the board. So let's not say that it's all white officers.
Right.
Or officers who are not black or African American. It's across the board, and that has to be addressed also in this training. All right, and as there's money, get the money so you can train this department. All right, because now the funding the department or keeping your department staff below the minimum requirements, that's counterproductive. Then they say they want to have unarmed psychologists go on these calls and don't have police officers respond. That is not a very good idea at all, because some of these mental health situations can be very violent, and you need someone there. It's good to have some mental health professionals respond with the officers, but do not throw these people out there on their own likeness, because their lives will be in peril.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. You're listening to Light 'em Up. We take a deep dive on the criminal justice system, crime scene investigation, and leadership. We enlighten, educate, and empower others with the truth. Like it or not, the truth disturbs, the truth divides, but ultimately, the truth delivers. What are some of your ideas for trying to reduce the incidence of active shooter events that we see daily across our country?
Dealing with an active shooter right now, it's the situation that's off the hook, all right? You're having shootings every week, all right? People are going to the workplace. They're going to the shopping centers. They're going to the churches, and they're shooting. I honestly don't know how we can stop that. Only thing I can say is how we deal with it. We need to have the proper training to deal with an active shooter. Once we get to the scene and we try to prevent that situation from escalating even further, more people are not shot. They said, well, we need to ban assault weapons. We need to ban these weapons. No, that is not going to solve the problem. Banning weapons, assault weapons with magazines that shoot more than 10 rounds. Background checks, perhaps, yeah, but being realistic, most forms of dope, narcotics, are illegal. That is not stopping people from procuring dope. So you can outlaw guns. They'll just go to some guy who's selling a weapon out of the back of the trunk of his car and obtain that weapon. And the only thing about banning these weapons is the fact you won't be able to purchase this weapon on a retail level. But if they want a weapon, they're going to get a weapon. It's plain and simple. So you can completely ban assault rifles. Are they going to, that just means that the companies making them won't be able to make as many because they won't be able to produce them. There's still assault weapons out here, whether they steal it from someone's home, someone's car, off them, the person still going to have a weapon. Now, the active shooter situation, the way to deal that with is a lot of the companies, these stores, schools, you need to have law enforcement officers on the scene, whether it's a security guard or a law enforcement officer who is armed and trained. Because seeing as we're not going to be able to stop a person from running and shooting up his or her workplace or school or a church or a shopping center, we may not be able to stop that unless we have information that is going to happen like right now where they're planning to do this. Sometimes it's a spur-of-the-moment situation. So having police and law enforcement officers or security officers on the scene and training how to deal with this. Dangerous work, a very dangerous situation. By the way that I can. Also training each companies and schools how to deal with the active shooter. Someone comes into the school, locking it down so these children can be safe. Having a law enforcement agency investigate even more people when red flags are being waved and sirens are being blown on an individual. Investigate that. Go one step further. Okay. A lot of these people, somewhere along the line, if we're seeing, well, yeah, this person exhibits this behavior. He or she said they were going to do this, or this person has problems here. He got fired. He or she got fired from their job. He stated they were going to come back and shoot the place up. Well, this is fine after the fact. The people did. Okay, we need to know that before it happens. What was said? A phone call. Yeah, I got a problem here. I think this person may do something real bad. Who can I talk to? Can I talk to someone? No problem. There's someone to talk to this person. That way we get some information on this individual, and perhaps law enforcement can look into it. And see, it goes back over this whole narrative, though. Law enforcement needs to change. Law enforcement needs to be more responsive. Take nothing for granted.
Yeah.
It may be labor intensive. It may be, something that, not paying attention. To me, you don't think that's going to happen. Tell me, who is this person? Look this person up. Look at his background. Investigate. Talk to this person. So law enforcement definitely needs to be more responsive to these issues and need to be trained in dealing with them, too. They go back to the mental health aspect of how to deal with this person.
No, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. Vic, can you share with us what your thoughts are and what you felt? Tell us about being recognized and awarded Officer of the Year on the B shift within the CPD.
Well, that was back in 85 when I was on B shift in patrol. My work, my commander, and my supervisors were happy with my work, and I just tried to do the right thing, do it right, within the guidelines of the rules and regulations. I tried to be a mentor to other officers, and I was just doing what this came. I wasn't trying to do it for any kind of accolade. I was just trying to do it because I was there and I had the power to do this, to be a mentor, to do the job right. Have citizens call up and instead of complaining, thank you for this officer, he did this, help me with my issues. There's a situation. As a matter of fact, I'd like to add this in, something that happened. I once went to a call. I go to these calls and you talk with citizens. Went to a call in the city, and there was a lady, she was in tears. Her 13-year-old child was off the hook. She wasn't going to school. She had run away. And again, you go to the home, you hear the story over and over again, and you try to, okay, ma'am, we'll take information report. Maybe she go to the school and talk to some counselors, for your child. And when she comes back home, be sure to give us a call because she's going to bitch or run away. And the lady was crying, especially when the citizens start crying. They are in despair. They call that police officer. Officer, I'm in despair. I'm in trouble. And they're crying. Okay, try to help, okay? So you take a report. And this one particular case, I was working, and I'm driving down St. Clair Avenue on East 76th Street, and in front of me, in the next lane over, in the center lane, was this old car. Smoke was belching out of the exhaust pipe. The license plate was hanging and dangling by one screw, and the taillights weren't working, and there was a lady in the front seat. The passenger side had the family dog. The family dog was yapping outside the window, saying, oh, my God, look at this. But I'm not pulling these people over because they have no money to pay for a ticket,
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe they'll keep going down the street. So we stopped at a red light, and this car pulled beside me. And there were two very large black women in the front seat. Their hair was standing up, and there was like 3 or 4 little kids in the back seat, no seat belts, nothing like that. And the lady looks at me and says, oh, Mr. Hayes. turned and looked. Hello, ma'am, how are you? Said, you don't remember me, do you? I don't remember, I don't. You helped me with my daughter. You little 13-year-old. You gave me some advice. I went and got the advice, and it helped out. She's back home now. I thank you, and it didn't dawn on me who this woman was. It was a woman who I gave some advice to help her with her family. And after the light turned green, they put her off down the street, smoke belching from the veil pipe, and the license plate dangling one screw. So for the rest of that day, I'm 5'9", but for the rest of that day, I was 10 feet tall. I had muscles bulging. I was lucky my aunt and uncle lived in the district where I worked, so I stopped by my uncle's house and I told him what had happened, you know. And for the rest of that day, I was 10 feet tall. I had muscles. I looked like Hulk Hogan, all right? I felt that way, and nothing bothered me. The office politics, well, I felt good. I touched one person.
Absolutely.
One day, again, working one-man patrol, I'm going down the street in Woodland Avenue, 110th Street, and there's smoke billowing 4 o'clock in the afternoon. 2 buildings are on fire, and I get out of the car, and I run up, and one gentleman's coming out of the basement. He says, did you search the building? I said, did you search the building? He says, yeah, my sister's upstairs. She's not coming out, you know. I said, oh, great. So I went in, and there was an elderly lady standing in the kitchen. She was in front of the building, and she was cooking, you know. And I said, ma'am, you got to get out of here. Your building's on fire. And she looked at me and didn't understand what I was saying, you know. I said, ma'am, you got to go. So I grabbed a blanket or something to put around her, and I escorted her outside. And I went back in to see if I could, you know, find, you know, a telephone. So I found a telephone and brought that out, and another officer came, and we searched the rest of the building, went upstairs where the building was burning. We couldn't get in because the roof had caved in. And we got this woman to safety, and I didn't know till later that she had had a stroke, and she was unable to communicate to me, you know, because she was handicapped. I said, ma'am, we got to go. Your building's on fire. Called the fire department. Eventually went to 2 alarms. They had to call extra people in because the building was on fire, and I was nominated by one of my colleagues and a supervisor for the Medal of Heroism. The Cleveland Rotary Club awarded me the Medal of Valor for dragging the citizen out from this fire. The American Red Cross awarded me Public Safety Hero for the same action.
Wow, that's fantastic.
I did what I had some fire department experience, but crawling through a building full of smoke. But I did because, see, at that point, you know, when you see this happening, you know, hey, somebody needs to call 911. Well, buddy, you are 911.
That's true. You're the first responder, and it's up to you.
That's it. 911 is sitting there. We had an old 92 Chevrolet Impala to the low, and we're 911, so let's get busy, you know. I was by myself, you know. I felt good, you know, because I helped save this woman's life.
Absolutely.
And I didn't think twice, okay? Went in, took care of business, you know. It was dangerous, it's dangerous. But this woman who had a stroke, she was unable to get out on her own. And yes, I felt good about it, and they, you know, what little pay I was getting my salary, you know, that was my pay for it, you know. I was lucky and blessed to receive the accolades I did, which I keep with me for the rest of my life, you know. And it's being humble, you know. It's, you know, you're not this isn't TV. This isn't a Clint Eastwood character I'm portraying, or a Boundtree Shaft character I'm portraying. It's just me, okay? Some people don't see that way, Phil. Some people come in and they think they're what they see on TV. And that usually is a very bad thing. That leads down a very bad road.
Yeah.
They sometimes don't live to get through a career, you know, but it's a job, blue collar. Majority of police officers are very good. And majority of what they want to do, try to do is keep the mortgage paid, and keep some food on the table, get some braces on junior daughters, you know, get them some braces and get them through school. That's who we are.
Absolutely.
You know, bad apples, somehow or another, they get in, and then it usually lead to a disaster for both the city and the department, you know, like what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we have officers like, are you kidding me? You thought you were reaching for your taser and you had your firearm out?
Yeah.
You pull the trigger of this gun thinking you're pulling the trigger on your taser?
No, I know.
What were you thinking? What kind of training did you receive? And you've been on job way past 20 years? So yeah, each department now, the departments are going to have to take a strong look before the Department of Justice comes in there and completely tear the departments up, okay, with new rules and regulations. Let's start reforming the way we do the job now before something does happen, before someone is killed unjustly, unjustified. Let's approach this problem now before we get to that point, and therefore we won't have to have the Department of Justice come in now, you know, and to come in and completely revamp the way we do business. But that's not happening.
No, absolutely. I hear you 100%. And you know, Vic, you are a true hero. You're a true hero in my book, and to have served for 39 years for the great people of the city of Cleveland. That's
Thank you.
that's a tremendous honor.
Thank you.
You know, they're the benefit of your dedicated service. Honestly, it has been our pleasure to have a chance to talk to you, to learn from you. And, there's so much area that we could cover. We only have, if only we could talk all day and night, which I know you'd be kind enough to do that.
I can go on. But Phil, if necessary, please, if necessary, we can do this again someday, all right? You have something you want to let me know.
Okay, that sounds great. And we will, because we want you to know that you have a home here with us on Light 'em Up, and we want you to feel, this is a safe space where you can come and share positive information and, just educate us. Like we say in our tagline, that we enlighten, educate, and empower others with the truth. And like it or not, the truth disturbs, the truth divides, but ultimately the truth delivers. And Vic, we are just so grateful to you. We always want to leave our special guest with a final word. So why don't you, take a minute, take us out, sum up what you would like, number one, my criminal justice students to know, because they're young and up and coming. Some of them are interested in law enforcement, but share with them a nugget of wisdom and let our listeners know what you'd like to let them know from your heart. Listen, just know that we're grateful to you, Vic, and we love you.
Yes. So, first of all, I'm aware that this platform is international, so we're talking to people listening from all over the world. Law enforcement is a fine, upstanding, noble career. Do not let what you're seeing in the media on the world stage affect you or turn you away from advocating this as your chosen career. Yes, you keep going. Learn everything you can. You have to, and even if you get on the job as a police officer, whatever form it may be in, whatever country you're in, when you get on this job, which you will, because one, have the desirability, have the desire, and capability to do this job, you're there. You may need to get some extra training. You may have to pay for training out of your own pocket. Get it, take it, and that will make you a better law enforcement public safety officer. That will make you better. You are your own chief of your department. You are the captain of your life. It is a very good job. It's a dangerous job, but knowing how to protect yourself and protect the citizens who are depending on you, regardless of whatever form you are, law enforcement you're in this United States, in this country, we're listening to us this afternoon. Good luck to you. Maintain who you are. And if you apply for the job and someone asks you, why do you want to be a police officer? You like helping explain to them how you can help, right? I'm asking you, this is what I'm listening for. Do not go in and say something that you think they're going to like. Say something you are passionate about, why you want to be in this job as a law enforcement officer, as a public safety officer.
Hey, you've been listening to Light 'em Up, and we want to say thank you to all of those who have been listening. We want to say ciao for now and adios from coast to coast. This is Light 'em Up.